Many thanks for joining us on this program. My name is Joy Asonye. You know, here on Joy Asonye Live, we discuss politics, governance, and policies. Now, during a meeting with the resident electoral commissioners to review the performance of the last week elections, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Yakubu Mahmood, admitted that the conduct of the just concluded presidential polls was marred with several issues, ranging from logistical, technological, security, and staff conduct, insisting that lessons have been learned, while assuring Nigerians that subsequent elections would be better. Now, on the 11th of March, that's this week, Saturday, 28 states would again head to the polls to elect governors and state assembly members of their choice. But how can we mitigate the hiccups that were faced during the presidential polls? We'll be discussing all of this with Ntufam Hilliard Etta. He is a former acting national chairman, APC, and presently the director of media and publicity of the Tinubu Shetima Grassroots Independent Campaign Council. Many thanks for being part of the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, it's wonderful. Congratulations as well. I know you worked day and night to see this day.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I must ask you, how do you feel that we are not seeing we are seeing rather opposition parties threaten to go to court for litigations about these elections, calling it a rape of democracy? When you hear such nuances, how does it make you feel?
Well, thank you for having me once again. It has become a culture of some sort that after every cycle of elections, those who lose elections in Nigeria would proceed to court for redress perceived irregularities by the umpire, by the manager of the elections, and even the winners, but maybe perhaps the conduct of the winners. And it is a welcome development. That
it is welcome.
It is welcome that the
opposition courts now have to determine.
No, it is better than going to the streets. Okay, it is better that they ventilate their concerns, their exceptions. They ventilate them through the judicial process. This is better than going to the streets and using young Nigerians to breach the security of the country. It is better that way. I guess that as we grow in our democratic experience, it will come to a time where the courts will not now have the right or the opportunity of the kind of very important position that the court has now in terms of the engineering process of the country. I believe that very soon, as our democracy deepens, as our democracy flourishes, it will get to a point where even the technology deployed by the managers of the elections will give the winners the joy of victories that are not questioned, and the losers the hope that they have an opportunity in the future, that all is not lost.
Ntufam Hilliard Etta, I mean, the way you sounded, one would think you do not see the hiccups that Nigerians are talking about. I mean, the international community and observers during this electionary process and the whole election conduct also admitted that the Nigerians had more expectations of the election, but you just sounded like it was completely hitch-free.
No, I cannot say that it was hitch-free. In fact, in my own polling unit, I couldn't vote because as I got to my polling unit, which was clearly spelled out by the managers of the elections, some talks led by the ward chairman of the PDP in my ward took the materials of the elections.
In your ward?
Yes, in my polling unit.
In
my ward,
unit? Wow.
Ward 5 of Calabar Municipality in Cross River State. It was taken away from the designated polling unit to a location that I was not comfortable
colluding with INEC personnel?
No. They were forced.
Right.
They were forced. And then of course, definitely I petitioned the managers. And I do not know, because I did not wait to see to what the managers would have done with that petition. I had to run back to Abuja. But I petitioned. I did what was necessary. So I cannot say, but you know, in my ward we have 28 polling units. And this hiccup happened in only one unit. You cannot therefore say that the elections in my ward did not substantially comply with the laws of the land.
Right.
Okay? And let me also tell Nigerians who care to listen, there is even the bastion of democracy, so to speak, the United States of America. In the last election, they had hiccups in their presidential elections.
That's
and
true.
So there is absolutely no human activity or human endeavor that is perfect. We cannot begin to expect perfection from the INEC for now. In fact, I think that the INEC did exceptionally well, given that this is the first time that they are deploying technology at the magnitude that they did. At the magnitude that they did. They did not have the opportunity of doing so across the nation as a test run. And they were just deploying this technology for the first time. One would have expected that Nigerians would give them the benefit of the doubt. I believe that there were hiccups here and there, but it was not enough to discredit the process.
Right.
Okay? In fact, the INEC did something, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, that is very ennobling. The INEC said about 90-something% of the results have been uploaded
exactly
to the portal. Please go and check whether it is the same as the result that you have from your ward. That is transparency. And I would like to say another thing about international observers. Every time we go for elections, we begin to talk about international observers. Whereas I do not think that Nigeria is an island unto itself.
Right.
I think that we should not put too much store on what people from outside of our country have to say about us.
Why not? I mean,
I will tell you why not.
They are perceived as independent and probably do not have leanings.
There is no time that the European nation will have an election and will expect Nigerians to come and tell them whether their elections met international standards or not. We are not subservient to any people. We are an independent nation. We cannot live by the standards of the Europeans or the Americans. We cannot.
Right.
It is demeaning for us to always wait for those who will come because the pigmentation of their skin is different from our own. We believe that they have the key to perfection. That is belittling ourselves.
Well, when there are hurdles, I must ask you.
The ECOWAS group came here.
Right.
And they were satisfied. And they are our brothers. They are perhaps at the level of political development like us. The African Union came here and they gave us a pass mark. I don't want to hear about what the Europeans have to say about us, for crying out loud, please.
However, you must admit that when it was time to campaign for these same positions, we saw our candidates running to these countries. You don't want to give us standard for our election right now to tell the world
and
what
truly,
they
I
plan.
take exceptions to it.
Right. Now, you would also agree that when you talk about free, credible elections, it doesn't matter who sees it. Truth is truth. And do you agree that the judiciary can, as a matter of fact, overturn these elections? Is it something that is possible?
It is possible. We have seen a lot of governors lose their seats based on judicial pronouncements. And it is not impossible for the judiciary to do the same for the people of Nigeria if they find that the elections did not substantially meet the dictates of the law as provided by both our Constitution and the Electoral Act. But as a member, as a participant in the process, as a partisan, as a member of the APC, I do know that the opposition is crying foul because it lost the election, not because they have facts to back their lamentations. It is interesting that the PDP says it won the election. Just like the LP would say, the LP is also claiming victory in the election.
Right.
So it means that, and we have been declared the winners of this election. It means that if we follow the narratives of the three groups, it means that three people.
Actually, you did not include the NNPP that says that in some polling units it did not have in the sheets their logo, and so a lot of people did not even.
I have not really read about.
Well, that is indeed.
I do not have the position of the NNPP. The position of the PDP is well catalogued. The position of the LP is well catalogued. Of course, we have been declared winner. It means, therefore, that there were three winners on the day.
Right.
But I find it absolutely unnerving that people can look us in the eyes and tell us this bull and cock story.
Okay, Ntufan, before we go into the upcoming elections in a couple of days, I would like you to address an issue that is very concerning to Nigerians, and that would be the intimidation we found. Did the APC pay thugs to intimidate people? Because that's largely the accusation.
How is that possible?
Now,
if the APC indulged in the payment or using thugs to intimidate people, how did we lose Lagos? How did we lose Kaduna? How did we lose Kano? We have governors. We have sitting governors in these states. You see, in my place, the place that you and I share, they say there is an adage that when a wife has absolutely nothing to tell the husband, she tells him that water has got stuck in her teeth.
And water doesn't get stuck.
I have said this in very many media, that violence within the process, the electoral process, has to be tackled by all political parties, especially the big ones, because there is nowhere in Nigeria that you do not have areas where these political parties have their strongholds. For instance, we know that there was a lot of intimidation in the Southeast by people who would not want to vote for the Labour Party. In fact, we lost an APC chieftain in Anambra. They killed him and had the flag of the APC wound around his neck for daring to espouse the APC in his neighborhood. So I cannot also absorb my party that in certain areas where we have very overzealous members, that things like this have not happened. The same thing for PDP. So when someone comes on television and tells you that, oh, it was the APC that arranged for thuggery all over the nation.
Well, I'm asking you because the APC is right here.
That is what somebody like Senator Dino Malaya has said. Okay? Now, it is being clever by half, because there are enclaves of the PDP, just like we have enclaves of the APC, where we have our strength. These things happen when you have strength. Okay? So, I call on all politicians of all persuasions that we have to sit down and see that no matter how inconveniencing, no matter how painful the process is, you must allow people to exercise choice, because it is the fundamental pillar of democracy, the ability to choose.
Exactly.
You cannot circumscribe anybody's choice using the instrumentality of violence. Now, I speak to this issue from the perspective that all of us, of all persuasions, are involved, and that we should come together to deal with this once and for all.
I mean, elections are in a couple of days. Do you still think it's possible to cascade this down to especially those rural areas where it's easy to see such violence being used as a tool to intimidate?
It is possible. And you see, some of the things that engender this violence must also be tackled head on.
Right.
You know, even there are some ones that we will need to tackle before the elections, and there are some aspects that need to be tackled even after the election. I'll give you some examples, but not all of it. It is quite a vast area.
Right.
One of the problems that we have is unrealistic expectations. Okay? Look, I know Nigerian politics. It is unrealistic for me to think that the APC candidate is going to win in Enugu State. Okay? If it happens, it will be pleasant. Okay? But if I sit down and I galvanize my people saying that, look, no matter what happens, the APC candidate has to win in Enugu, I am being unrealistic. And these unrealistic expectations, when they don't come to pass, when they don't come to fruition, could be very, very frustrating and exasperating. And it could propel people with a lot of emotions to let loose their anger. So it is important that political leaders tone down their rhetorics in such a way that those who follow them will not have these kinds of unrealistic expectations. That is number one.
Okay.
Number two, even after the elections, Nigerians must sit around a table and discuss the regulation of the social media.
The social media?
Yes, because you see, there is a swath of Nigerians whose Bible or Quran is the social media. And the social media not being regulated, for me, is a mob and truly a marketplace for lies and falsehood.
Right.
So we need to do something. We are not the only country that has access to social media. We like to quote China. A lot of our political leaders would like to tell you what China has done in the few years that China started its economic revolution. The one thing that they will not tell you is that the social media in China is highly regulated. And I always say that the main media, the mainstream media in Nigeria is regulated.
Highly regulated.
Highly
really.
regulated.
But I would like to see the kind of regulations you would like to, you would want to
say
implemented in the social media
one
space.
of the things that I would like to say is deliberate falsehood. If you bring, for instance, I have not said something, and you create a situation to give the impression that I have said that thing, you have to account. You have to account for falsehood. You have to account for people who take a picture that was taken in Rwanda to show us that it happened in Borno. Someone has to account.
Right.
Because you know what happened in Rwanda.
The genocide.
The genocide started with just a radio broadcast. And you know how the Balkans War started
exactly.
with just a shot by a 12-year-old. A mistaken shot. He used his father's hunting gun, and the other side thought that the war had started. And that is how the Balkans War started, if you must know. So we have to be extremely careful. We are not in a perfect union as a country. In fact, countries that are as old as America, America is about 250-something years old now as a union. They still do not have a perfect union.
So when you say Nigeria is not in a perfect union, you mean the ethnicity divide?
No, I'm saying that we have discernible fault lines. And we are working at it to go away. You remember that when Asonye Bola Ahmed Tinubu chose Senator Shetima, His Excellency Senator
Shetima,
he raised an uproar.
He did.
In Nigeria. It was simply because we have religion as one of our fault lines. We have ethnicity as one of our fault lines. Okay? So, when you have a social media that is not regulated, and they play with these very emotional facets of our country, it could lead us to regrettable circumstances.
But it didn't for your candidate. I must say that with all the stones, I mean, I did not do a research, but I must tell you that of all the candidates that had backlash and stones thrown at him, your candidate, that's your principal, the president-elect, had so much stones thrown at him, especially on the social media. We saw very vile and vicious comments on that space. However, it did not affect the outcome, as he has obviously emerged president-elect.
So
what would you say? I just want to ask what you think he did better. He did.
First of all, you must know that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a force of nature.
Right.
He is not an. You know, a lot of people. I may offend the sensibilities of a lot of people with what I'm going to say now. But he's not an ordinary man.
He's not?
No, he's not.
He's a god? Is that what you mean?
No, he's not God. He's not
Is
God.
he a god,
God forbid that I raise a man to the pantheon of any god. He's not God.
So
when you see, I have been doing politics since the age of 17. And I am not a spring chicken. I have seen
leaders.
Been
around the block.
I have seen leaders. I have interacted with leaders. This leader is different. You see, you talk about vile comments and all of this. For Asiwaju, all of those things constituted the oxygen that made for his unrelenting strides forward to achieving his life goal. When he said that being the president of Nigeria was his lifelong ambition, the whole world went after him. I was elected national vice chairman in 2014. I won my re-election in 2018. I became acting national chairman in 2020. I'll tell you this. Within the party, very exceptionally strong conspiracies were brought to bear in an attempt to first push him out of the party.
Out of the party, not just the primary race.
First push him out of the party. The first thing that was done or that was planned was that by 2020 December, he would have been taken out of the party. And in all of this, he said absolutely nothing. What he did was that he was calling on his investments, his political investments from the north, from the east, from the south, and from the west, and was telling them that time has not come to strike. Of course, they were not able to uproot him from the party, because in the party he is an octopus. He's an octopus.
Meaning he has his legs spread.
If he had left the party will crumble.
Right. Because the likes of you would have probably followed him.
I say this, not just me. A multitude would have followed him.
But I mean, the president-elect has already emerged, so there's no need advertising him, right? Let's just go back to what we are seeing. Earlier today, there was a protest by the People's Democratic Party. They had the presidential candidate, or the presidential candidate led that protest with PDP chieftains. And we also saw that out of the 8.7 million Nigerians that collected their permanent voters card, we saw only about 20.4 million actually voting. With all this happening and the Labour Party threatening to go to court, do you think there will be more voter apathy during the gubernatorial candidate on Saturday?
You know, the governorship and the House of Assembly elections are closer to the people than the presidential election.
Right.
And so I believe that rather than decrease, that the number of people that will participate in that exercise will increase substantially. That is my expectation. Now coming to the street protest by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He has to do that because very soon he's going back to Dubai to have sustained...
I'm not sure if you have, you got that information from
No,
him?
it has always been like that. It is a cycle. Every time he fails an election, he goes to Dubai.
Because he's
not, goes to Dubai to
but
rest.
Because he's not here to tell you that for a fact, I would rather we let that slide.
Nigerians know that for a fact, that he's going to go to Dubai. In any case, that is not important.
Right.
What is important is that, look, protest is part and parcel of the democratic process.
It is.
That is why what they did today has not offended us by any stretch of the imagination. We did protest too. Have you forgotten?
I remember.
We did protest. So no one can say, no one can legislate protest outside of the prism of democratic process. We must allow those kinds of things. Those things deepen our democracy.
Okay. It doesn't seem to even affect you at all. So how does it deepen the democracy?
No, it deepens the democracy in the sense that people have the right to disagree with you. You see, it is difficult to be a Democrat. Exceptionally difficult. Because people will disagree with you. Even people from the same household. You may have a situation where in your household, your child will disagree with you. My daughter, my second daughter disagreed with me in these elections. My second daughter is obedient. My elder brother, one father, one mother, is obedient. But what I am trying to say in essence is that, look, all of these things put together, they are to enrich our political narrative.
Okay. Do you think but do you think it will affect people if you hear the nuances and permutations from these candidates who are aggrieved at the moment? They seem unhappy with what's going on, and do you think it will cascade to their followers?
I think that actually what has exacerbated this situation is social media.
The social media.
I'll give you an example. You know, you can sit in your house and use your computer and mutilate a result sheet. It won't take you more than maybe 5 minutes to do so. And you post it and say, look at a result sheet from my PU. Look at what they did to it. And someone else somewhere is likely to believe what you have just posted.
Right.
Nobody has taken, there's nobody that is in Nigeria, in any authority, to say, let us look at that thing that this person has posted.
Exactly.
And so when those kinds of things are released to our community, there are a lot of gullible people. There are a lot of people who are barely literate, but who are on the social media. And then they take these things as God's honest truth. Another example that I want to give to you is that in Calabar, in Cross River State, where I come from, there was nowhere in Cross River State on the day of election, nowhere, because we had a situation room, nowhere that we heard that there was a miscarriage of justice or there was a conspiracy to rig any of the polling units. We lost to Labour Party. We have a sitting APC governor
that lost his senatorial bid.
Who even lost his senatorial bid. Now, only for us yesterday to see a publication by the Labour Party that we had 7.2% in Cross River State. And somebody somewhere who does not know better is likely to believe that.
Right. But Ntufam, we are running out of time. Before I let you go, I'll just quickly ask you to advise INEC so that we could get that trust
I think that
again.
one of the things that I will say something about the INEC. One of the things that INEC has to do will have to do with the administrative efficiency of that commission.
Right. Administrative.
If you say you're going to be in a polling unit by 8 a.m., please be at the polling unit by 8 a.m. Okay?
Right.
In my polling unit, before what happened in my polling unit, I was outside in that place till 11 o'clock. Okay? Most of these things add up to
the distrust.
To build distrust about the commission. What you need to do administratively, I believe that it can be done. We have done elections over and over and over again.
That's true.
That's number one. Number two, I also want to urge and beg and plead with the chairman of INEC to please tell Nigerians, because we have been hearing this thing in the grapevine, that there were attempts, over 197 attempts were made to hack the INEC portal. It is not an information that should be concealed by INEC.
Right.
We should know that these things have happened so that even the ordinary person will prepare his mind and know that these things are happening in Nigeria. People were arrested in Maitama. Till today, we have not heard of any kind of information from that arrest. What were they doing with INEC equipments? I know from what we have heard, and we want either he should corroborate this or distance the commission from this. But we have heard that one of the reasons that made for the INEC not to upload those results was because there were attempts made to hack the portal of the INEC.
Well, that's coming from you, because INEC actually said they were working on upscaling and that was not completed, and so they had glitches. But Honorable Ntufam, I apologize. Ntufam Iliad Eta, I must thank you for being part of the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Ntufam is a former acting national chairman of the APC and presently director media and publicity of the Tinubu Shetima Grassroots Independent Campaign Council. Thank you again for being part of the program and sharing your insights. We'll go for a short break right now. We'll return with more. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back from that short break. Like I talked about earlier, we're discussing reviewing the presidential polls that happened and looking forward to the gubernatorial and state assembly polls. What are the lessons to learn? To do the final nugget here on the show, we have Adamak Sydney. She is a former presidential aspirant with the PRP, and she's here to do justice to just that. Ada, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, Joy, for having me on KAFTAN. Congratulations on this.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to do what, I love doing. But let's go straight to reviewing what happened during the presidential and the National Assembly polls. What would you say is the biggest hiccup that happened that took you unawares, that you weren't expecting, despite assurances by the Independent National Electoral Commission?
Yeah, I strongly, first things first, let's give it to our citizens for coming out in throngs, because I think that was the first shocker for INEC, and I do not think that INEC, irrespective of what they thought they had done enough, I do not think they were well prepared for the pouring of Nigerians, at the polls.
That's funny. I mean, we had over 12 million new voters. That is people who had never been to the polls before. So I'm surprised.
Yes. Yeah. You would think they were better prepared.
Yes.
But at the point where you're having glitches, with the uploading of data, with the beavers, and results at the end of the voting process, I think that came as a shocker, because we would have expected that the INEC was better prepared for, to receive the citizens and as well transmit the results. If they say they had problems with the server, how come the server had not been tested enough, before you proned it to say it was good to go for the elections?
I must thank you for this final nugget. But before I let you go, INEC is preparing for the gubernatorial elections. What would be your last statement to them?
We sure hope that the upload monitors are working this time,
right,
and nobody is hacking the servers, and that the results are, justify what happens on ground.
Okay, thank you so much. I know you were being mischievous with that last one when you said hacking the system. I know where you were going with that. It's in response to what my earlier guest had said. But I must thank you, Adamak Sydney, for the final nuggets with you. But this is where we wrap up the program today. My name is Joy Asonye. We'll be right back tomorrow with more. Have a wonderful evening.